Action! So Misty had a question about supplement bottles. That actually was a question that I posed to her, because even if someone's on supplementation, and you know, the average American diet is usually pretty lacking. The average American diet is full of bad stuff. If you're better than the average American diet and you cook from scratch, mostly whole food, plant-based eating, then you should be okay. You just have to, there's always something to improve upon. I like to improve upon nutrition, exercise, and mindful practice before I go into the prescriptions, unless it's severe. So one of the biggest problems of the millennium is inflammation. And there is a general source of anti-inflammatory found in omega-3. Mostly because we have such an imbalance. We have way too many omega-6s and not enough omega-3s. When you balance things out, you actually have a anti-inflammatory state. When you have omega-6 high, omega-3 low, you'll have a pro-inflammatory state. So one of the easiest things to do, if you're thinking about taking a vitamin of some sort and are undecided, well, I would always look for a deficiency first, fix that. But then if you have no deficiency or you're on a budget, then you go for the Gusto, omega-3 fish oil. So here is a case where you have an omega-3 fish oil. This is from a patient that enlightened me on this brand over the counter, and it had, and I highlighted it here, hopefully it comes out clean, per 2 capsules, 2,100 milligrams of total omega-3 per 2 capsules. That essentially is about 1,500 per cap of total omega-3 oil. That's pretty good. And this is a huge volume. According to the patient, this was really cheap. This is what I used to take, usually rely on. And if you look here, this is per, try to get out of the reflection, per 1 capsule, 800 milligrams of total omega-3 oil. So that's pretty decent. This is the elite. I am an elite omega-3 oil user. So you'll see different levels. You'll have regular, you'll have super, then you'll have elite, at least as far as Carlson. I think even Nordic Naturals too. But those companies are really good. I've actually queried them, called the 800 number, and they usually will fish in open sea versus near polluted lakes or rivers. They usually will batch test their fish oils for mercury and other contents. And I have spoken with local distilleries as far as making fish oil, and usually they'll go through such a good process that all the mercury should come out during the distillation process, but it's not guaranteed. So sometimes you can get something called supercritical, but I don't think you can do that with fish oil. And here is another one that I tried for a short amount of time, found it online on Amazon. It had what I was looking for, about per 2 capsules, 2,000. So that's 1,000 per cap. So you can see in the variety. And then somebody brought in, I don't have it here, but somebody brought in the Julasco brand, and per 2 capsules, it had 600 milligrams of total omega-3. So when in a blanket statement I say, I want you to take 2 capsules a day, 2 capsules a night of total omega-3, maybe if you have cholesterol issues, 2,000 milligrams of total omega-3 oil twice a day. That could be 2 different statements. 2,000 milligrams of total omega-3 oil in the morning and at night. Usually it's all the gut will tolerate, just in the example of omega-3. And you can't push more than that, but the question is, can you fit that into one helping that doesn't make you gag? So if you take the Julasco brand, nothing against Julasco, but if you take the brand that's standard there, you'll have 300 milligrams per capsule, and just pretend I have a bottle of Julasco brand. 300 milligrams per capsule, and I said 2,000. That's a lot of pills at one point in time, and these things are huge. And here's the other thing. The problem with fish oil, smells like fish. Some of this stuff is nasty. This stuff was nasty. The new stuff I have at home, that's even nastier. I told my wife to take the fish oil and she almost gagged. So it has to have some palatability, even though you just swallow it real quick. So the reason I wanted to bring this up is when you take a vitamin, or when I suggest you take a supplement for a deficiency I have found, or an ailment that we're trying to take care of before we go to prescription drugs, you gotta really, you can't just go with this stuff. This is to grab your attention. You have to go with what the federal government tells or mandates that the companies have to do. They have to put this stuff on the nutrition panel. So this is a nutrition panel. It's pretty standard, and it's mandated that, well, you're supposed to put it on if you're going to be over the counter. Not all companies will do it. I guess there's not too many watchdogs. So some companies will be cheap and they won't fill out their panels. Sometimes you'll have companies that will do a proprietary blend of something. So that means that's proprietary. That means it's their formula of a whole bunch of different things. Now this happens to be Sound Sleep. I like Sound Sleep because of the effect it gives on me. It happens to have a nice blend of different things, but if I was going to be exact, which is usually the case, I would go with one particular supplement that you're lacking or one that we're looking for an effect with. Because if you do something with proprietary blends of a whole bunch of stuff and say you have a side effect, I'm not going to know what the side effect is due to on this blend. So this blend is out. So if you do one thing, omega-3 versus 5-HTP versus magnesium or vitamin D, and you have an issue, then you can narrow it down to saying your side effect is because of this. So it is important to read labels. Nobody wants to, but usually when I tell patients to bring their bottles in, it's so I can read the labels and then guide you in case the cholesterol is still high, or in case the magnesium is low, or in case the adrenals aren't kicking on yet. I can guide you as far as how much to use. A lot of people like the high-end stuff. I don't think you have to go high-end. I do trust Consumer Lab as far as doing independent evaluations on different companies, and they have good standards. One of my patients had found some dirt on the CEO, and I think it's reasonable. Most CEOs are very rich to begin with, so they usually come from major corporations, whether it's food industry or law, politics. So it has to be understood. You have to do some research. You have to really resonate with whoever owns the company, but you also have to look into the practices of the company as well. And out there's not that many places that evaluate, and Consumer Lab is one of them. So I like it. And then the Consumer Labs does charge the companies to batch test because it's expensive to run a batch test. So I've seen that argument online too. But bottom line is we have no other way to evaluate. The organic stamp label has been put forth by the USDA, and it's supposed to be followed to the T, or else you cannot, without severe penalty, you cannot put the organic stamp on the bottle. The non-GMO project is more independent, but thank God somebody came out to kind of hold some products to higher quality as far as GMO, since the government is not doing that. The lobbyists got past that. They said it did not need labeling, which I think is a big mistake, but I get into another argument. But so the bottom line with regards to label bottles, supplements, is you have to read your labels. And if you get something that has a bunch of different things and you're going for just one thing, go for the one thing. Don't go for the bunch of different things. Even if the proprietary blend or the multi-thing is cheap, you don't know what you're getting with the rest of that stuff, and why even bother if you have a side effect? You're not going to know what caused it. Ultimately, you want to get your nutrition from whole food only. The only problem is, do we have the affordability to do the whole food? Do we have the palatability to cook the whole food? Do you have the availability of that whole food in your area? I'm sure if you search, you can probably do it. In Chicago, we get cold 4 months a year. We can still find good places that sell. Thank God for Mariano's, Whole Foods, Fruitful Yield, Caputo's. So those places are great. They give wide variety, and because they're doing so well, the Julasco is also keeping up with that. So the consumer is active, and the consumer is forcing the companies to produce good quality. But you just have to be careful when it comes to vitamins, because there's a lot of sources to get it, and you have to be succinct. Otherwise, I do have patients who have a list of I got patients with a list of different things. Here's a patient that came in with a list of her vitamins. There's a second page to this too. So she's got a ton of different things that I have to research, I have to read, and we got to see if these things are causing a side effect, because that's just way too many things. I mean, I thought I'd take a lot of stuff, but I usually curtail depending on my training and depending on what time of the year it is. But too many supplements is also bad. It's expensive, it's bad. Too little supplement, I think it's a bad idea. I think the average American needs it. So be wary about where you get your stuff. Good question. But I think in the long run, Misty, it just comes down to kind of working with me, either through the portal or through occasional visits, and figuring out what works best for you.